How would you respond to this statement? Everyone can benefit from having a life coach. It's hard to argue with the idea that having a supportive, non-judgmental listener to share our journey with can be helpful. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Educators Going Global, where we invite aspiring and veteran international educators to expand their knowledge of all things related to international education. My name is Audrey. My co-host David and I bring almost 50 years of combined experience teaching overseas to the table. This episode kicks off a new series for us that centers on transitions coaching for international educators. We've selected some realistic transition difficulties that could be, and have been, experienced by educators in the international school space. We want to emphasize that these are unscripted sessions where David is doing his best to represent real educators experiencing realistic situations related to transitions, and Audrey is delivering in-the-moment life coaching that could help to address the issues involved. Please be gentle with us as we seek to demonstrate the power of life coaching for those faced with a transition from a comfortable, known school/city/country/culture to a new and unfamiliar one. Whether you're currently experiencing your first transition or your umpteenth, we hope these episodes will be helpful and that they may even prompt you to seek transitions coaching for yourself. Hey, David, it's nice to see you again. So during our discovery call, you shared that you've been an international educator for 4 years. And you've moved twice before this, so this is your third move. You've been in this new country for 3 months, roughly, and you feel like the logistics of things are mostly settled as far as school, housing, and so on, but the emotional reality feels heavier than you'd expected, this being your third move. And you also shared that you miss aspects of your previous life, like your colleagues, your routines, even some small familiar things. And so you notice some moments of doubt where you're saying to yourself, did I make the right decision? And at the same time, you express that nothing really is wrong. Your school's fine, your role is manageable, but just something feels off. How does that sound? Am I getting that right?
That's right. I guess it's a lot of loss. I'm missing people and I'm missing a way of life. And as much as I wouldn't call myself a veteran yet of international education, but I've been in a couple schools. So I kind of thought I had this figured out, but it's clear I don't. So I need some guidance on how do I overcome these feelings of loss, these feelings of missing people, missing routines, to kind of start planting some roots in my new school, my new community.
Yeah. So you're really still kind of in that transition phase wherein you're in the middle of things and you're not sure what's going on. You're maybe doubting yourself a little bit in the decision that you made to move to this place. You're missing some of the colleagues and places and the familiarity of a lot of what you had before. That sounds really quite heavy and challenging. I'm wondering if you just feel the sensations in your body. Where do you really feel that the most?
Ooh. So I haven't really thought about it. And now that I'm feeling it, it's in my chest. That one is a rough one. And I hadn't let myself do this.
Okay. Yeah, it's we don't often think about our body's response to situations and how we're feeling. And it's really important to try to remember that our bodies will respond directly to what's going on in our lives and how we're feeling about it. So thank you for sharing that. So how can I best serve you today?
Well, I want to focus today on the aspect of, did I make the right move?
Okay. So I'm wondering, what did you expect this phase to feel like?
Well, I kind of was saying I'm kind of a veteran of international education. So I kind of said, I've got this down. I've got it figured out. And I'm just realizing when I really step back, this whole international school experience, there's so many upsides to it, but I wouldn't call it traumatic, but it is something that it kind of creeps up on you, at least in my case, that when one moves, and I really tried to say goodbye to people and like say goodbye to my routines and go to the places that were important to me in the city one last time. So I did try to follow through on that. I know a lot of people say that. Um, Yet I need guidance now on how to move forward. That's kind of where I am and what steps should I take. Can you help me figure this out?
Right. So it sounds like what I'm understanding is that you feel like you did all the right things. You left well, you took all the, as you say, the steps that a person should take in making a move like that. You said goodbye to all the friends and the familiar places. And so now you're kind of looking for steps for moving forward from here in the new place. Is that right?
Right. And I know in going to your website, you've taught in so many places, you've had so many transitions. That's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, that you have had so many experiences. And like I'm saying, I'm a little dumbfounded right now, but
Yeah.
that's the way it is. And I'm giving myself grace, and I'm just not going to sit
Great.
and kind of wallow in self pity. I'm going to say, what can I do? What action steps do I need to take?
So it sounded like you expected this phase to feel really smooth, and it's not really feeling all that smooth. What would you say it actually feels like right now?
It feels like they're parts of what I'm doing in my life here. The teaching part, the school's been really great with their orientation. I feel like I have a certain amount of control. My capacity to handle this new job and working with new students, colleagues, and all that all feels pretty good. And what I'm feeling that area of discomfort in is I wish things were, I guess, that I felt more connected with my colleagues, that it was happening a little faster. And I just wish that I had places that I could go to. Like I used to be in a running club before at my last school. I volunteered at my last school, or not at the school, but outside of the school. So there are structures that just aren't in place now. And I'm going to answer kind of the question to myself. I need to start figuring these things out, how to make them happen.
Right. Well, these things take time, right? As you
Right.
know. And I really appreciated that you said you're giving yourself grace. And yes, I can see where, it's tough to let go of some things that were already there and to have to start over. It feels kind of exhausting. What do you think is behind, like, what feelings are behind, what emotions are behind this discomfort that you're feeling?
Well, as I kind of visualize I guess it really comes down to the relationships. And I felt very connected to the colleagues on my team. I'm a fourth grade teacher, so I felt really close to my teammates. And then
Right.
I did some coaching, and that part, oh my, the time with my student athletes, I'm really, really missing them. And one of the great things about international teaching is traveling, taking them to tournaments and such. And what an experience that was. Uh, just the depth of connection to others. in the end, my rituals of things to do in the city and well, the volunteering too. I worked with some students that were at an orphanage, and that was,
Cool.
yeah, it was really important to me. So that aspect of my life is missing. There's a depth you get with your students, as we all know, in our classroom, but then when you're in a local culture, and this really just knocked me over with a feather. It was like I'm really learning from these young people who I'm working with to teach some life skills to, and playing sports with them, and maybe I'm making a difference in their lives. These are big emotional things that I'm now realizing are just gone right now.
Right. So a lot of challenging emotions. Can you try to go a little deeper and name some of those emotions? What are you feeling?
I guess let's think about the volunteering. I felt connected to all my students that I worked with in doing that, and sitting down with them, and we'd be talking about how how does one have courage to try new things. That was one of my lessons, for example, and to hear them share their stories about times when they felt they didn't have the courage, and we would work through that. And some of the students would even have like tears in their eyes of
Mm.
times that they wish something would have happened, and they didn't really, in some cases, know how to make things happen, and sometimes they were just scared. So that feeling of it was a really intimacy that I had with those students. So that was big. And then the camaraderie with my colleagues, for example, to uh, not only share the laughs, but there were times when things didn't always go well at school, and we would be able to lean on each other's shoulder, and uh, being able to share openly and honestly about how we were doing. That was huge. I didn't have that back in my home country. It was more you appreciated your colleagues, but you just weren't as connected. At the end of the day, you go home. Here, at the end of the day, we're out playing ultimate frisbee, or we're meeting across the street at a coffee shop or something like that. So I think the level, the depth of the, I'll use that word again, that intimacy of the relationships was so powerful, and I'm really missing that. So that's, I see where we're going with this one. I need to stop and reflect about that. So thank you, and it's helping me kind of pinpoint what's been getting in the way, because I don't know, maybe I'm scared now. Maybe it's me, the one who's a little bit scared to try to connect to people.
That's a really interesting connection that you're kind of, as you said, you learned from those kids because they were trying something new, and to make that connection that here you are trying something new and maybe you're feeling a little afraid. Yeah. Any other emotions that kind of come up for you as you think about how you're feeling right now?
And that, I think that's really it. In one big area, I've got to give myself credit that, like I said, I'm feeling much more like I know what's going on as an international educator, and my skill set has grown, and my knowledge base. I've had a lot of PD the last 4 years. So when it comes to doing my job, I'm feeling confident, and I'm feeling that I've got this. Not that I've got everything figured out, but a quiet confidence. So that kind of feeling of feeling just comfortable, that's a real positive. And I think I need to make that a kind of a foundation as I try to move forward. And like you were just saying, making connections. I need to be ready to start making some connections with, well, I'm making connections, but more in-depth connections with people around me.
Right. Yeah, that's a good plan. And it certainly is something that makes all the difference. If you're familiar with Doug Ota and his work on transitions, belonging is so important in schools. And for us to thrive, we really do need to feel like we belong and have those attachments that can help us to feel comfortable and part of things and secure. One, if I may, one word that kept popping up for me when you were talking about your feelings on this was loneliness. How
Ah,
does that land with you if I say that word?
I didn't think about that. I, I'm guessing I on the surface, I don't feel lonely because I'm around people.
Uh-huh.
But I think you're saying to me that one can be around people and feel maybe not feel lonely, but there's so much more to human relationships than just just being around people. And I'm
Yeah.
lucky. Yeah, I'm lucky. I work with great people. My students are wonderful. But I had something a lot more going on with all my relationships before, and now I've just got to be honest with myself that this is going to, like you were saying, it's going to take some time, and I've got to make a little bit of a leap here and
Right.
there, right?
Yeah. Little courage,
Mm-hmm.
taking that little effort to build those connections like you were talking about that you had at your last place, and certainly would not have taken for granted. But just reframing it for yourself that that takes time for sure. So, if this is a transition experience, let's just reframe it. This is a transition experience and not a mistake. What shifts for you to think of it that way?
Well, that definitely puts it in a better light because I definitely was taking more of the negative, and that's a good point. I'm just feeling isolated, and just my headspace is kind of filled with that. Did I make a mistake? What did I do wrong?
Mhm.
And not stopping and saying, what are the things that are working? And right now, you're helping me really realize that this place could offer the same, or I guess similar, relationship opportunities. And I need to have a more um, open mind towards that and move out of the kind of that, I wouldn't call it a dark space, but just a space that it's got a little negative energy going on. And I'm a person that really is thriving in a lot of ways. And I just need to get that back in gear, that mindset of, all right, I'm kind of diagnosing what's going on here. It's not that I made some terrible mistake. These are normal emotions that are coming up. And as much as I was cognizant I was going through transitions, I just wasn't prepared as much as I
Mm.
thought I was. And maybe one can think they're super prepared, but emotions are emotions. They're going to happen. And so I just have to let myself experience them, but then put together the action steps to kind of move out of this kind of lull right now of transition into really accepting my new lifestyle here.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, giving yourself some grace and just trying to remember that it's okay not to feel okay.
Right.
And with time, you'll make those connections because it really does sound like the parts of your previous life that you most miss or most aware of missing right now are those connections, those familiar places to go, people to be with, patterns of your life. And just rather than thinking, well, I don't have those, so I failed, just
Yeah.
reframing it as this takes time and I will get there. And um, I have done it before. I can do it again, type of thinking. About your new location, life situation, what feels unfamiliar, but isn't necessarily wrong with this new
Hmm.
job, position, country. Yeah.
The the culture of the school is a little more formal. It's a big school, and it's maybe, I guess you'd call it, a high powered school. A lot of moving parts. It works really well. And not in a negative way. I know people say these things about some of the big schools, but it is like a machine, but not in a negative way. It's got good systems and things like that. Uh, and they're just like in my fourth grade, there are four teams, where at my
Oh,
last school there was only one team, and that's a huge difference. And I'm guessing, now that I put it into words, that's kind of that's a big difference. In my
yeah.
last school, if you needed to get something done or get some help, it was just an easy go ask the person who runs that program, or you've got your team to make decisions. But now there's more of a hierarchy, and there's more processes to go through to get things that you might need. So that's a big difference that I need to acknowledge.
Yeah. So it sounds like just the unfamiliar systems are something that you've come up against, and it was so much easier in the other place because you kind of always knew whom to go to. And so, feeling like a newbie who hasn't got it all figured out, and again, just trying to be at peace with, this is how it is. This is okay. This is not, I made a mistake. This is part of the transition experience. Anything else that feels unfamiliar but isn't necessarily wrong?
That's the big one. I've been here, it's almost 3 months. I haven't had as much time yet to go out and explore. And the culture here, from what people say, uh, is very open and very friendly, even though there's going to be a language barrier. People say it's very easy to connect with the people who live here outside of school. My last school, that was a bit of a struggle. It was more of a formal place, kind of a hierarchical place, just the way that society was, I guess. And I'm an American, and I'm used to just being very open with people and asking questions. And my last place, I had to give relationships time when I would meet people, like in some of the running club. It took me a while to kind of break through some barriers with people, but the real positive people tell me about here is that's not going to happen here. It's just people are going to be very open. They're going to be ready to talk. And so that's a cool thing. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I've gotten out a little bit. I have joined a running club.
Nice.
I've only done it once. Yeah. So I'm taking those steps. So that is one thing that I think is going to be a little bit easier to do when it comes to life outside of school.
Taking running steps, I guess. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think that when you put it that way and you're talking about some of the positives of this culture that you've moved to, first of all, your whole body and your face just seems so much more charged up and positive when you're talking about that. And you've had the experience of, as you said, giving relationships time to kind of percolate. And here you won't have to do that as much. So that sounds like a big positive, that those connections that you wish to make may in fact be smoother
Hmm.
going than they were in your previous place. So that's something to look forward to. So if you were able to allow this phase to be incomplete, it's a chapter, it's not the entire book, what pressure might ease?
Well, I, I, I think that's a big part of what I'm realizing right now, that I need to step back, um, and get out of, like I was saying, that little bit of a dark area, thinking that this wasn't the right place to come to, and feeling isolated and a little lonely. I think now that I'm going to give myself a little bit more time, but I'm also realizing I need to move on some things. And besides, like the running club, I need to find out, well, like on Friday afternoons, where do people go out for a drink? I haven't heard much about that yet. Maybe it will be me. Maybe I organize the first get together. Maybe that
Ooh.
isn't a normal ritual here. But I'm feeling like I can take the pressure off, but at the same time, I do want to be taking steps towards building those connections that you're talking about. So it's, in one hand, taking a deep breath. It's okay. This place has got a lot of great things going. But on the other hand, there are things I want to see happen. And I have the capacity, like I said, to do that.
Okay. Well, I like that you're sounding a little more future focused, a little more positive, and saying that you have the capacity. It's all about building the capacity to hold doubt and yet not overinterpret it.
Ah,
Just because you're having those doubts, don't jump to the conclusion that you made a mistake. Just remind yourself this is a transition feeling and it's okay. It's
okay.
okay to have those feelings, even though they're challenging. So, well, this has been very interesting, and I really appreciate you sharing how you're feeling about things. I feel pretty good that you've gotten some thoughts and maybe some reframes going. Are you ready to wrap up for today, David?
I am. I'm feeling like a lot came out of my brain with your questions, and I'm feeling really good about that. So I'm ready. We can wrap up.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So, what value did you create for yourself in today's session?
A lot of self-awareness.
Hmm.
Like it, like this is something that if I already had some really good friends here, I could possibly have these kind of talks. Um, but even with close friends back at my last school, it's I've got to be kind of straightforward. It's tough for people to be comfortable when you're sharing emotions and you're feeling a bit lost. That, I think, for a lot of people, they don't know how to respond. So it's been super helpful that, of course, you know how to respond. This is what you do,
Yeah.
and that's been super helpful.
Right. It can be uncomfortable having this kind of conversation. Even when people say, "How are you doing?" the reflex is to say, "I'm fine," and not get into it
Right.
because of how uncomfortable it can be. Was there anything missing, incomplete, or disempowering about our conversation?
No. My response is all that it's really worked well. And I know when we meet next time, it might not always be this way. There are going to be times when maybe what I'm bringing up that we don't get to a solution. And it doesn't have to be a solution. This isn't like A plus B equals C. It's, we brought up some, like I was just saying, self awareness. And that's been really, really helpful. I think going forward, what I want to work on though is like I was saying, how do I take some steps to try to build deeper relationships, both in school and out of school? That's maybe it's kind of like homework. I'm going to start thinking about that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I would like to talk about is we call it field work so that it doesn't
Oh,
feel like school.
hmm,
You're a scientist out there trying tiny experiments and seeing how they go, right? So,
right.
is there one small action step that you would like to commit to for before our next meeting next week?
So, what comes to mind is that there is someone on my team who we clearly are becoming good friends. And we are very connected in school, but we haven't done anything outside of school. So, what I think I'm going to do is ask this person and see if we can come up with something that we could do together. and in a way get him to show me more of life outside of school. So I think that that's doable. I can do that before our next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. And last question, who would you like to be acknowledged for being today?
Well, so the part of myself today was that I gave myself grace, that I said, ease back there, Dave, and give yourself a little space to let these emotions come up, respond to Audrey's questions. So that acknowledgement, but like I want to acknowledge you too, like I was just saying, even at my last school, it's not often where I'm talking to people and they can respond the way you've responded, to be such a good listener. So I acknowledge that in you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I would like to in turn acknowledge you for giving yourself grace, taking your foot off the gas a little bit and saying, this is going to be hard. It's always hard to do a transition and it takes time, and just having that perspective that, again, this is a chapter, it's a transition, there's going to be feelings and all of that is okay. And as you said, you are acknowledging the agency that you have and the capacity that you have in order to make a difference here. You've committed to taking a baby step of connecting with one colleague outside of school. Hopefully, you'll find some common ground there that you can connect on. And I also want to acknowledge you for having the courage to share some of those deeper feelings, because that's not an easy thing to do. So I acknowledge and appreciate you. Thank you for meeting with me today, David, and we'll see you next week.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it, Audrey.
So am I. All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today on Educators Going Global.
You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, and all the other usual suspects.
Please subscribe, like us, and leave a review on Apple and Spotify, and let your teaching friends know about us so we can grow our community.
Please reach out at educatorsgoingglobal@gmail.com and join our Facebook group, Educators Going Global, if you have ideas, comments, or wish to share a Going Global story of your own.
You can also find us on Instagram at Educators Going Global.
Please visit our website as well, www.educatorsgoingglobal.com. All our podcast episodes are on there by topic, along with blog posts, Going Global stories, and our ever-growing resource library. For now, this is Audrey
and David,
inviting you to travel,
teach,
and connect with us.